How's the Josh today? Hi. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank the CKT College trustees for giving me this opportunity to present my whatever little knowledge I have. It's not a very vast knowledge. And thank you to Dr. Zingare Madam for having the confidence that I can take such a lecture for the young students. And my firstly, I would like to know how many of you all are MSc or into microbiology? How many students? What about the rest? You all are from which branches? Biochemistry, biotechnology. Okay, so what are the rest of the students?
How many of you are from microbiology?
Okay, the entire. Okay. Okay. Another question to you all. Do you think you need a PhD to get a job in the pharmaceutical industry? How many think that you need a PhD only then I would enter the pharma industry? Have you all ever had the opportunity to speak to your seniors who have left this college? What have they pursued? Anyone? Okay. Yeah, the pointer on the slide. Okay. What do you all think? Where do you all want to be? Do you all want to be in the pharma industry or in a research? Loudly. Speak loudly. You all want to be in the research. Okay. How many want to be in the research in the pharma industry? And what have you all heard about research in the pharma industry? Anything? Research and development? Yeah. Production, manufacturing, quality control. How many of you all have heard of clinical research? Only two? Clinical research has a big market in our country. So basically, pharma is fundamentally a biology-driven industry. Why? Because each of the life science graduates are maybe part of discovery to the manufacturing part of a drug. So what we are doing here is we are going to be studying only how a drug comes to the market, from how a research idea is formed and how it lands as a tablet in your hand. That is what is the pharma industry all about. And why life sciences? Because you all understand what a cell is. You all also understand microbes, proteins, genes, to some extent about diseases, something about mechanism. And the demand is increasing because there's a lot of expansion in the vaccine industry. Number of vaccines are being formed. Any vaccines which were developed in our country? Can you think of any vaccines? For COVID, we had a vaccine. Yes. So there was a lot of expansion to biologics, biosimilars, growth in the R&D and clinical research and manufacturing services. And lastly, into the regulatory, the focus is more into regulatory and quality services. So globally, there are two things. When you talk about pharma industry, we are thinking about multinational companies. You're thinking about contract research organizations. You're thinking about site management organizations. So globally, so industry is expanding. Why? Because number of chronic diseases, the aging population is increasing, and continuous innovations on bioethics, on biologics, vaccines, and personalized medicine. And India is the top leader for generics. About 20% of generics which get distributed and developed are from India. And vaccine manufacturing, active pharmaceutical ingredient supply, all that comes from. So there are a lot of government initiatives like Make in India initiative, then increase R&D investment, growing export opportunities. All these are driving the further growth. So what they need is a skilled workforce from different with different acumens, okay? Like quality control, QA, R&D and formulation, regulatory affairs, manufacturing, production, clinical research, and pharmacology. Now, out of all these, I have been part of clinical research and pharmacovigilance in the industry. So I would be able to guide you a lot more on that. So life science graduates with technical skills and relevant certifications are highly valued. You all must have all heard of whenever you have to join a company, it's always better first to go back to their company website. If you're applying for a job, look at what are they asking, accordingly prepare. If your interest is into research and development, see what are the skills you need. Finally, what is pharma all about? It's a corporate job. What is the most important thing about a corporate job? You're out to make money. Okay. Business is the, so you have to be very, very aligned to the goals. So accordingly, whatever is asked in an advertisement, as per that, you should have your training skills. So there are a number of training institutes, number of internships which are available, which will guide you in taking up further. So if you, I just thought the crowd is microbiology, so pulled out some slides on microbiology. So if you look at this slide over the next 10 years, the pharmaceutical microbiology market growth by 2034 is almost 13%. It's a big $1 billion, 13 to $14 billion industry. And what about the other areas which are progressing? That is microbiology testing segments, sterility testing, endotoxin testing, microbial limits testing, environmental monitoring like the soil testing and all that, rapid methods. Okay. So all these are the next market, which is, so there is a lot of demand, so definitely the supply is also required. Now let's look at how a drug is made. Do you all know how much time a drug takes to come into the market? Any idea? How many? Is it in days, months, years? Years. So how many years? Approximately. Some guess. It takes about 15 years, a minimum. Okay. It starts like a idea. Small starts with a small research idea, which disease you want to target. You have a target validation. Then you look at more than 10,000 compounds. That is called the compound screening. There is the lead optimization. When the more than 10,000, you come down to 250 candidates of drugs. Then further down, you have preclinical testings. So that would bring it to about 10 to 20 candidates. And all this is like preclinical is mainly animal testing or in vitro testing. And then we reach the human phase, that is called a clinical trial. So we have the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. and phase 4, that is the marketing. So phase 1 is the initial stage. So there we would have around 6 candidates. By phase 2, 4, by phase 3, 2, and by the time it's approved, it could be just one molecule. So you can imagine how much money, how much time, how many manpower is required to reach that. Okay. So what are, so let's look at each of those, you would say the branches where you can go in. Since you all, most of you all told about research, I don't know how many would actually take up research. I know so many graduates who are interested into clinical research. When I joined the clinical research industry, more than doctors, there are only life science graduates like BScs, MScs, and it's a very rewarding career. I will also tell you stories about one or two colleagues of mine who are doing very well and who started as BSc, MSc, biochemistry and doing extremely well. So research and development, you have different roles. So could join as research scientists and with various backgrounds. Could be biology, biotechnology, microbiology, biochemistry, formulation development, analytical development, molecular biology, cell culture, genetic engineering. All these are a little higher. And vaccine and biologics development. So what are the skills that you require? Wet lab skills, assay development, cell culture, then protein purification, data handling. So this is more for a MSc, biotech, microbiology or biotech background. So what are the skill sets which you are learning here? What are the instruments you have here in your wet lab? Can you all tell what all hands-on you have, or you have learned, or just learned, or are you able to have a hands-on on all these? Or do you all have a hands-on? Because the reason I'm telling is when you send your CV to an employer, you need to write, I have experience, or I'm comfortable doing all these. Okay, so that is very important. So this is a little bit more in detail for the microbiology students. So you have the drug design and discovery. So that starts with, if you're a microbiologist, you will mostly land up looking at microbes, antibiotic development, biosynthetic pathways, how you can modify that and manipulate the metabolic pathways, high throughput screening, which is I showed in the beginning of the chart. So that is where number of compounds are screened, and bioinformatics integration. That's again at a higher level. If you get into a clinical trial organization or a clinical research organization, your expertise will be required for a biomarker development, a microbiome analysis, or a sample testing. So you should have skills which are in demand are aseptic techniques, PCR and sequencing, data analysis, and cell culture. Vaccine development, how many of you want to get into a vaccine company? Which are the vaccine producing companies who develop vaccines? Serum Institute, very good. So there you can get into developing attenuated vaccines, viral vector engineering. So there are a number of different skills. Just remember, you don't go there with all the skills. You learn while on the job. You have access to training before joining any of the high-end jobs. So it is not like you already equipped with it. So stability testing, mRNA technology for vaccines, you do remember our Moderna vaccine. And more emerging techniques are in the phage therapy, synthetic biology, microbiome testing, and the rapid diagnostic. Rapid diagnostic in industries fast moving ahead. Now, in the QC, you can join. What is QC all about? What do you think is QC? What do you do in QC? Quality control. What is a person supposed to do?
Maybe you can speak louder.
Speak loudly. So your job is to see that there is no contamination, right? The drug which is being processed should be in an uncontaminated environment. The end product is uncontaminated. There is a lot of endotoxin testing, sterility testing. That is the main job of a microbiologist in a QC. So you can have microbiologists, biochemists, you should have understanding of HPLC, UV, and GC, and testing the raw material and finished product testing. So if you look at the QA and QC, what is the difference between QA and QC? Assurance means assurance people mainly are involved in the audits. Okay? QC is mainly into sterility testing, the aseptic techniques. So all that is very important. So microbiologist's responsibility is to test for the raw materials, in-process samples, and the finished products. Secondly, environmental monitoring, validation of the sterilization process, and identification and investigation of any microbial contamination. So very, very crucial roles you all play in the QC. So you have testing the microbial limits, the analysis of it, interpretation, then the compliance as per the regulatory, and finally the documentation. So different testing methods, which I mentioned, are sterility testing, endotoxin testing. And for this, what knowledge you need to have is what are the current GMP practices? What is pharmacopoeia standards? That is, what is pharmacopoeia? What are the word pharmacopoeia? No? Okay, this is a big book. Okay? Like we have our Indian pharmacopoeia, there's a US pharmacopoeia. As per that, it will give you the details of every compound, how it should go, right from how it is the source of it till the end, till whatever data you have, the structure, the stability details, all that is there as per the pharmacopoeia standards. Then FDA guidance and some standards you should know, the IWSA standards that is revealed. So usually the career growth is you start as a QC microbiology analyst, can become a senior QC microbiologist, then a QC microbiology supervisor and a manager and so on. So that is how the career path goes. Then for production and manufacturing, next. So main role is in monitoring and maintaining aseptic conditions like that. Secondly, in bioreactor monitoring, I'm sure part of this you all are learning in your curriculum, right? From first year, second year, you will hear of most of the terms as you study, but you may not have had the access to actually do the practical aspects. That's so upstream processing, downstream. Upstream mainly is about the cell culture. Do you all are they trained on cell culture? Yeah. So I'm sure all these which terms are there, you all are already aware of, or you would learn through your 3 years of training. Downstream processing, so the filtration, validation, product sterility, and environmental monitoring of the clean rooms. Then vaccine production, so that is so the production and manufacturing you would be having an access into this. If you get into this area, it's one of the best places. But as I would like to mention that these areas you need lot of eye for detail, lot of hard work to get into the vaccine production. So antigen production, characterization, microbial seed lots, maintenance, endotoxin testing. And how it flows is there is a raw material testing, production, purification, and finally the final test. So that is how the process goes. Now we come to clinical research and data management. So till now, whatever we saw, that is research development, production, manufacturing. So you need lab skills. Okay. Now, when you come into clinical research, you are not in a lab. Particularly, you're in a office. So I spoke about a CRO, a contract research organization. So that is the organization which has been given some responsibilities of the MNC. The MNC doesn't want to do all the jobs. They give a number of services to the CRO, so they do the end to end. So what a clinical research organization has, it has number of departments. Like one is the clinical operations department, another is the medical affairs department. There is a data management, clinical data management department. There is a pharmacovigilance department, a biostatistics department. So on. So it is mainly you can say, a office job. You may involve a lot of traveling if you get into clinical operations. Okay? There's always a business development group also within this contract research organization. So these are the different roles which you can join in at a undergraduate level. If you are a BSc, maybe as a clinical research associate, but with an added MSc, you're better equipped. What they look for of life science graduates is you need to have a certain level of good communication skills, okay, confidence, and you should be very positive about aligning with the goals of that team. Team alignment, team collaboration is very important, and interpersonal relations are very, very important. And if along with your life science skills, graduate degree, if you also have some prior certification, like you have certification in all of these, the pharmacovigilance is very, very common. Number of graduates are getting into it. It's better job prospects and good salary. Most of the salaries begin with 2.5 lakhs for a BSc, and MSCs start with 5 to 8. That is how it goes. So in the beginning, you can join as a clinical research associate, clinical trial assistant, pharmacovigilance. So something called as a clinical research coordinator. So coordinator is somebody who's helping at a hospital site. Some hospitals may hire a research coordinator to help them with some international trial, clinical trial. So their main role is the daily trial activities at the clinical trial site. So they may have to interact with the patients. Okay? Otherwise, if you are in a CRO, you would not directly interact with them. So you have to interact with the patients, the sponsors, the research team. Secondly, you have a junior clinical research associate. This is a person is called a monitor. Okay? We have a term called clinical trial monitor. So this involves a lot of traveling because number of times the trials are across the country. Okay? If there is a trial, then multiple sites. So you may be in charge of a particular site in some other city. So you have to travel there. And what the clinical trial associate does is he's going to monitor the clinical trial. What is a clinical trial? It is what is a clinical trial? Anybody? Anybody have heard of clinical trial? The clinical trial is, like I told, is a human experiment where you have the drug which we don't know whether it can come into the market, but it's being experimented in the humans. So it follows a particular protocol. So every trial has a book. It's a book. It's a roadmap which tells how to conduct this trial. So the clinical trial associate has to go through that and see that the trial or the research team at the site is following it properly. Okay, so the main thing is monitoring of clinical trials and ensuring compliance as per the protocol and the regulations. Who is the regulatory body in our country for approval of drugs? Anybody? You heard of CDSCO? CDSCO or the Drug Controller General of India. It's the Central Drug Standards Control Organization. Only after he approves can a drug can come into the market in our country. Like we have FDA abroad, EMEA in the Europe, so FDA for US. So similarly, so these are certain terms you will have to familiarize with if you're getting into a pharma industry. Then clinical trial assistant is more into documentation and maintenance of files. So there's a lot of filing activity. What clinical research, if you get into a clinical operations, is you are not a doctor, but you are helping a site which has doctors involved in conducting an experiment and who bring out the correct clean data or the complete data as per the protocol. So we have certain standards like the ICA GCP or good clinical practices. So there, whenever these drugs, there are two important things you have to remember when you're doing the GCP is one thing is the safety of the subjects and second is the data that you're getting is clean data, okay? Reliable clean data. So that is how the clinical trial assistants, clinical research associates are going to help in this trial process. Then we have the clinical data associates or who are present in the data management team. Then regulatory affairs. If anybody who wants to join the regulatory affairs, highly paid positions, you need to know what the regulatory does is they bring the protocol or the product to approval state. So they are the ones who do all the submissions to the Drug Controller of India. So look, needs a lot of documentation work, eye for detail. So we have something called as a clinical trial document, the electronic clinical trial document. It's a whole dossier which has to be prepared. And then one is the medical writing job. If you are good in communications, if your communication skills are good, writing skills, then definitely you can get into medical writing. It's a desk job. You don't have to travel anywhere. All the other things, even regulatory is a desk job. All other things, anything in clinical operations. So which are the ones in clinical operations? If you're a clinical trial monitor, if you're a clinical research associate. So all this you have to travel to different city or maybe in the same city also. But most of the time it's a traveling job. Next. So pharmacovigilance, how many have heard of this? No one? This is the burning job for clinical research. A number of you will join because we have right here in Navi Mumbai so many companies who are doing this pharmacovigilance activities. What pharmacovigilance does is they are collecting the adverse event information about the drug. Okay. So the main job is to identify, evaluate, understand and prevent adverse effects. So whatever adverse effects are happening in a particular clinical trial that comes to this department, it has to be processed by the pharmacovigilance associate. There's a whole lot of procedure to it. So whenever a drug comes into market, it is or even in the stage when it's in the clinical research stage, whatever drug we are experimenting with not only has a benefit but also has some risk. The risk is what we call as the which will come out as an adverse. So that has to be monitored. So primary roles are drug safety associate. Then as you go higher, signal detection specialist. then pharmacovigilance data analyst. So these are various terms you all can. So I would like to actually share the slides with students so they can actually read through it, get to know those terms, so they know where how their trajectory should be. There will be a drug safety coordinator. So this is actually a very nice job for life science graduates. Number of medical doctors are also into it after MD. It's not necessary. So when I joined in the pharma industry, there were very few doctors. My team consisted of pharmacists, biochemists, microbiologists, not many. I had people from zoology, botany, and we conducted, when I was at Reliance Clinical Research, the company was very good at that time. And they brought out one course called as the Young Clinical Professionals Program, where they just advertised those who are interested in clinical research, please apply. We took about 50 students. I mean, of course, it was through 50 candidates after a particular interview, but most of them were MSCs. All of them were trained in every aspect of clinical research. Plus, they got a stipend. It was like on the job, and every department, like I trained them on how to write a protocol, how to do adverse event monitoring, how to write a report, how to write a paper, how to write, a regulatory document. So all this, they went through every department. And then they were asked, as per your interest, you can decide where you want to go. So they had hands-on training as well as several lectures. So each student had the opportunity to decide, and then they were absorbed into the company, which is an excellent thing. Nowadays, there are a number of companies also doing this. Okay, regulatory affairs, like there is a regulatory affairs department, even the research side. I'm talking more of the clinical research. So there it is dossier preparation. The main objective is to the product approval. So for that, what is the data? What is this? This is a huge master files or huge folders which are submitted to the drug controller of India. Once they go through it, then they would approve it. So regulatory submission, which can be to our regulations, that is CDSCO or FDA or EMA. So anybody who likes documentation work can get into it, and highly paid positions. Next. Medical writing. I didn't speak much about the medical writing. Medical writing at a life science level. I mean, most of the time in India, the people who write a protocol is a medical doctor. Okay? But in abroad, do you know who writes a protocol? Bachelor of Arts. And it's so beautifully written that anybody who reads the protocol will understand what is written. Okay. So there is a difference. So they are kind of trained into writing. So there is not very lot of medical people involved in that. So this is also a good chance for people who are interested into getting into the communications front. So medical writing. So what do you write? You can write the scientific content. If you are trained to write a protocol, good. You may write informed consent forms, how to write a clinical study report. Sometimes you may have to be part of the publication of that trial, the report. Sometimes you have to write monographs. Sometimes, the companies get different businesses. Like there was a company who gave us a number of research papers. We wanted to summarize it to 1,000 words. But that is an art. How you summarize even a table? The entire paper, which may be 20 pages, how you summarize it into 1,000 or 2,000 words. It's a highly paid job, right? I don't remember how much we were getting paid for every assignment of that. But as you learn that, you learn how to actually summarize and come to the key aspect. What is the objective of the study? what is the study design, what are the results, and this is not for the doctors per se, it's for actually the medical reps which we have done that. So anybody with strong writing skills, communication skills, when I say communication, it's not just writing skills, also speaking skills. You have to work in a team. Medical writing is not just one person's job. You have to work together so that the document that comes out is in alignment with what is required. Otherwise, when you give a job to different people, they write at their own levels. It's a very difficult task for a manager to make it look very aligned. Next. So these are the ones which I've already mentioned. So investigators brochure, that is a document which has everything about the drug. So protocol, informed consent forms, so technical writing, research publications, study reports. So these are all, and you can, the skills that is required is accuracy. So eye for detail is very, very important. Scientific precision, regulatory knowledge, communication, data visualization. How do you interpret a table? How do you interpret a graph? These are very important. Go to next. Yeah. Again, we have the data management team. So what the data management team does is, once all the trial is over, the data will keep coming to them. It's called a raw data. So whatever, it's not claimed. So they have their softwares which will say, which will clean it up. So that is exactly what the data management team does. So raw data collection, then error checking, data cleaning protocols, then they put it into the database and generate the analysis. And then it's subject to the statistical analysis, also part of the data management team. And finally, they give a report. So you can join us, clinical data manager, QA, QC compliance officer, biostatistician. These are all part of the same team. Okay, so what are the skills that you require? First, just remember marks are not everything. Okay, when you're joining a company, a corporate, it is not your marks. Please remember that you need not have a very high marks or distinction to say I only then I will get into it. It's just the first thing, you should have the interest to join that particular branch. Second, good communication skills, a very positive attitude, and an ethical mindset. That is very, very important. And if you have additional certifications like a pharmacovigilance certification or data management or clinical research courses are there, a number of institutes are running that, maybe a 6 months or a 1 year course. So if you are able to take that, good enough. Then excellent documentation and attention for detail. That is very, very important. And just remember, when you join industry, it's not exactly a 9 to 5. You may have to sit extra hours. And time management. Whenever somebody tells, I want this document, the amount of pressure that is put is as if they don't need it tomorrow, they needed it yesterday. So you have to be that ready. So for that, you have to train yourself. It's, you learn from your peers, you learn by reading different publications. So this is a career where you have to be very, very aware when you're part of the team. Organizational skills, able to coordinate, work in a team, interpersonal skills, networking, go to the LinkedIn website and search for people who are already into those branches and look at what they have been doing. So it makes a big difference. Next. Okay, then the last one is a life science graduate who is a good communicator who likes to travel, can take the sales position also. That is mainly like that of a medical representative. You need to, what does a medical representative do? They have to go to the doctors, market the products. But for that, you need to understand the product very well. Can't say, please, you can't force them to prescribe what is the medicine. But there is a certain way how we compare with the old products. There will be visuals made. The number of activities to become a good sales medical representative requires some good communication, and it's a highly paid job. A lot of traveling. You need to be a little outgoing because you need certain assertiveness to make the doctor give you certain time of his busy schedule. So how you follow up with one's queries? It's not that the doctor will accept whatever you say to market. He will have some queries for you, so which you need to go back, check, come back with references. That is how this sales representative career goes. Next. Okay, now there are a lot of emerging areas. One is into artificial intelligence, machine learning. So I think by the time you complete your MSc and all, you would have a much more hands-on on all these. It would be already there, this position. Precision medicine or personalized medicine, biologics, and then we have the advanced therapies for medical products like CAR-T and gene therapy. Madam has been, I think, we have been reviewing these projects. Digital health. So these are the updated careers which you will definitely have hands-on with. So if these are some of the skills I thought which you should have when you're putting up in your CV. If you have HPLC skills or PCR operating, RT-PCR, cell culture, ELISA, all those, everything based on the GLP, GMP standards, GCP, good clinical practices, good documentation skills, communication skills, then you're kind of ready for a research position. Okay? So your CVs can be kept ready for that. Next. Okay, these are the certifications which I said. You have, depending on what you want to pursue, you can join shorter courses also on data management, pharmacovigilance, medical writing, biostatistics. Next. Okay, these are some of the institutes where you can take these courses. One is Clinic Money, Clinic India, Clinic University, ICRI is from very long time. Then Pfizer's Learning Academy, then International Institute of Clinical Research Services, then Certified Clinical Research Professional, CCRP. So this, if you look up on the net, you would definitely get more information. Okay, some of the employers who are interested in taking the life science graduates and whose focus is more on R&D. One is Sun Pharma, then Serum Institute, Dr. Reddy, then global CROs. If you look at IQVIA, there is no job which you will not find. Everything. IQVIA is throughout in our country and all over the world. Okay? And these people also allow work from home. So many people whom I know even doctors who are sitting at home and working. PPD, then there are job portals, especially Biotechnica. You must be already aware of these another job portals, Indeed. So what you can do is go to this website, put what you're seeking, look at what is it they're expecting out of those positions. So these are some of the employers and what they do. Like if you say Spectrum Clinical Research, it's a full service CRO, which full service means it does everything. Clinical trial consult, right from clinical operations, pharmacovigilance, medical writing, into clinical data management, biostatistics, everything, and then when creating the study report and sending to the sponsor sends that to the regulator. So like that, there are many of them. Some of them have even offices all over the world also. So this you all can go next. Okay, there are certain internships I thought You could, even before, if you don't want to be joining a course, so while doing your BSc, maybe if you get a short term, like a 1 month internship or something, you can look up number of companies. Like for biotech students, microbiology, biochemistry, and genetic students, you have R&D internships. So cell culture, PCR, all those techniques, and which are the companies which are offering that as Biocon, Syngene, Zydus, Serum Institute, even Reliance Life Sciences. This is a short course. QC, again, we have Sun Pharma, Aurobindo Pharma, Mylan, Lupin. QA again. QA is going to focus on GMP, GLP, SOP writing, change control, any deviation handling, and batch manufacturing records. Most of the major pharma companies who have a manufacturing units are holding these internships. So if you all are you're sure you want to do it, or even before you think I want to take up this as my career, you can always explore these internships to decide whether you want to go into that one. Production and manufacturing, where they teach you about tablet capsule manufacturing, injectable operations, and bioprocessing and fermentation, clean room protocols. Biocon has the Bocard. Bocard used to have infectious disease department also, but now it's closed down, where they used to take microbiologists for that Bharat Biotech, Intas Pharma, all of them were in internships in production and manufacturing. Clinical research is for life science graduates who don't want to do any lab work, but it's more like documentation, clinical trial documentation, or some amount of traveling. So you need to know the ICH-GCP guidelines, patient data handling, how do you do that, pharmacovigilance, basics. So this all might be in a 1.5 months of a small internship. It could be a summer training program. So you have to explore, go back to their websites and check what are the internships. Here, IQVIA, which is into all the branches. Paraxel. Pharmacovigilance teaches you how to handle adverse events. Drug safety terminology, the MEDRA coding, how you do the coding. MEDRA coding is different from a medical coder. Do you know what is medical coding? There are medical coding jobs also, but it's not given by MNCs. Some CROs give that, but what you need is a training. You need to have a certification in medical coding, only then can join that. And there's certain alphanumeric coding which is done as per the international classification of diseases. So you're actually trained to do that. It's also a highly paid job. Then in pharmacovigilance, again we have MEDRA coding, signal detection basics. Many of these companies, they have huge units only for pharmacovigilance. It's a big industry. So I'm sure some of you can explore this. TCS, which is here only at Nehru, near LP, they have their unit here. Aris Global is the one which has just built a big software, how you enter those things. Regulatory, again, like I said, it's a dossier preparation. So it's mainly a desk job. FDA, EMA, WHO guidelines is what is done. How to do the product registration. The number of companies, Biocon, Cipla, how to the regulatory affairs internships. Medical affairs, so they teach you how to do medical writing, very basics, right from grammar, how to form sentences, everything is taught. Literature review, scientific content creation, publication support, and which are the companies which are into this? Mango Life Sciences, IQVI, medical writing teams. Okay, like we have the other government websites also which help with the training. The CSIR labs, ICMR labs, and DPT institutes, offer internship programs. So all this you can just go to their website and see when they have these events. Okay, just to summarize, I hope you have got some bird's eye view of what I want to convey. So, pharma industry is offering a number of diverse growing career options for life science graduates. So you have options in the R&D, QC, production, manufacturing, and clinical research, so which includes pharmacovigilance, medical writing, clinical operations. And the demand is increasing because there's a lot of expansion in biotechnology, vaccines, biologics. And what you are in a better position along with your graduation if you have skills which are aligned with the goals of that company. So either you go for a certification or additional interest. So you can choose a path that matches your strength, interest, and long-term goals. I'm ready to take any questions if you have. Anybody with any questions?
I think what I'd like all of you to do is to put a at a map. What do I want to do? And I think the steps that Dr. Jason will tell you the various options you have, right from vendor to documentation, to